The players at Augusta National this week are going to face some fairly unique challenges, but they're quite limited in their scope. Augusta doesn't have a great deal of rough. There's a little bit left of 10 green that players might find themselves in, long on 13 possibly, but for the most part balls are going to miss greens and run off into bunkers which are fairly deep, or they're going to run off into collection areas. Now that actually limits the number of shots required. Now you need to be able to deal with shots from a low sitting ground to something far above you, typically from a fairly tight, firm lie. The lies get firmer as the week goes on, so you have to be very careful not to bounce the club into the golf ball because the ball speed just ramps up too much. Bunkers are a fairly unique challenge, as in the sand is not like you're going to find at most tour events. The ball very, very rarely sits up. That means it's very difficult to get spin, it's very difficult to hit the ball high. Two things that you really need around that golf course. Now, the low areas also allow the option of a bump and run if there's not a bunker in the way. Being able to control the bump and runs will be key this week because you can't fly onto the green every single time you want to. Let's take a look at the challenges and how to play them. Now, the thing about elevation is that it makes the ball come in much flatter than it would if you were playing to a green at the same level as you. Now, as I've already mentioned, most of the shots from a fairway are going to be down in collection areas and runoff, so the green is almost always going to be above. The lie is always going to be pretty tight. Not as tight as Legend might have it, but still firms up through the week and get quite bouncy towards Saturday and Sunday when the fun really begins. So we're going to look at this one first. It's relatively short, I'm shorter sided, it's onto a downslope. I think realistically I can get it to maybe 6-7 feet if I land it somewhere near the edge of the green. Now the back pins might also require a higher, more spinny shot. Let's tell you why. It's above, we know. If you play a stock shot, it's going to come in like a low one and running. Greens are quick, remember. That left pin, there's a runoff about 5-6 feet left of it, and if I catch that, the ball's going to go off the front edge of the green there. Okay, so let's take a look at these options and how to play them. So as I said, it's got a really tight lie, it's pretty firm, you probably can't quite hear the club hitting the ground, but it's pretty solid. Now, to get height and spin is a tough combination. Okay, kind of a high launching spin is really tough because usually a high shot, the ball slips up the club face a lot. Okay, now if you want spin, you can't have the ball slip. It's going to grab, and that's why those real low spinny wedges you hit sometimes, often by accident, come out so flat because it grips, the friction pulls the launch down and it's off. Now, the only way to hit it high and maintain spin is to have a very, very shallow attack angle. So the feeling like it's coming in level to the ground with plenty of loft on it to try and bring the launch up without reducing friction. Now, there is a risk if the environment's not right that you get debris between club and ball when you come in really shallow. Now, Augusta's not going to be a problem. Like I said, it's pretty tight, not as tight as you think, but you're going to struggle to really have the ball slip up the club face. So let's have a look at the front pin. I'm going to actually go heel down just a little bit because the grind on this wedge has heel relief and toe relief. I can sit it in the heel and get it really tight to the ground. So I'm looking for a tight leading edge with an open face and a very shallow attack just to try and flip it up and maintain spin. Okay, that was pretty good. Still gone 7-8 feet past. There's not a lot more I could do, but let's go to that back left pin. And we talk about expectations. Now, you're going to see players play smart. That back left flag, they're probably not going to risk going left of it. So feeding it to the right, leaving it slightly short is the option and the key here. Anything long and left is dead. So I'm going to try and land this past that first flag. I'm still going with my high, moderately well spinning shot and try and feed it to the right of that cup. That was pretty good. Loads of control, second bounce. So run down to about 7 feet. Yeah, it's above the hole, but it's not 50 feet below it. Let's have a look at the bump and run. I've got about a 5-foot rise here. Grass type is going to influence your decision greatly, so you have to just be aware of how the ball's going to react on different types of grasses. Here, it's a little bit Bermuda, it's a bit sticky, so I'm expecting any kind of spin to make the ball pop up and not go forwards a great deal. Now, if you're playing on a different kind of grass, say bent, or you're playing links golf, you pretty much guarantee the ball's going to go forwards more than it's going to go up. So your decision maybe doesn't have to be quite the same. I'm going to run through different options here. So this 5-foot rise is going to go my 60 first of all. Now, 60 is going to generate pretty high spin. That means you have to bump it really high on the bank, get the one hop that goes up, and then it should release out onto the green gently. Other options are going to be to go down loft to reduce the spin, and I'll show you those to the front pin and also to the back. We're going to go pretty high on the hill, relatively stock flight, Gonna look to get it to pop up once, release out towards that front pin. Here's my hop, but it just skipped forwards a little bit more than I'd liked it to. Let's go again. The problem in bump and runs is you can't always guarantee the outcome. Sometimes you will get one that skips. Now typically on this grass it should pull up, and it could quite easily do. So I mean, that's 12 feet long, it's not the end of the world, but I think we can do better. Okay, second bounce was just short of the green, but it definitely dug its heels in more. It's rolled down to about 3 feet, so it had very little energy on the golf ball when it got to the green. Now you can see I didn't do a great deal different. The landing spots were slightly different, and the ball reacted in very different ways. Launch was the same, ball speed pretty close. It wasn't really my fault that one ball is 12 feet by and one's 3 feet short. It's just the roll of the dice that you take when you're playing the bump with spin. Yeah, I'm going to drop down to a pitching wedge now to play something with less spin. This has about 47, 48 degrees in it, can't be sure. I carry a 54 and a 60, and if I want to take the spin right off, I'm going to go down at least 2 clubs. What this should allow is for me to bounce the ball shorter or lower on the hill, knowing it's going to want to work up the hill more effectively, and then try and rely on my touch to get it onto the green, rolling end over end, and hopefully finishing somewhere close. Okay, so I'm going to pick an approximate spot. Just a little bit too much pace on it. It's right by the first ball, but I learned first time with the 60. Let's see if I can do the same here or not. A little shorter, it does come off pretty quick. A little bit lower down the hill. It's having, the tough bit here is having the trust to know the ball's going to get up the hill and not forcing it, which is the trap I just fell into. It's got less pace, it's just going to dribble on, working its way down. That's the mental challenge there. That's 2 feet right of the hole, it's dead pin high, but I felt like I was going to leave it right on top of the hill. As soon as it made it over that crest, it was always going to feed down to the cup. You're going to see that a lot this week. Now here's a position you probably wouldn't want to be in yourself. Now picture the 7th hole at Augusta, right? Uphill, second shot, very, very shallow green, bunkers protecting front. The ball that doesn't finish in the sand is simply going to run down somewhere short of a bunker, leaving something like this, often to very short flags. I mean, there's no real long flags on that green if you miss it short. So you're going to need something higher trajectory and spinning to get over the sand and give you landing control. I'm going to go to this front right pin you can barely see. It's about 10, 12 feet on. Looks like nothing from here, but it has to be high, has to have check. I've got a camera behind. Let's see what we can do. Again, I'm going to go face pretty open. I'm going to try and sit the heel down again to get it tight to the ground. I just don't want this thing to bounce. If I play this on the center of the sole, I'm increasing the odds that happens. I'm just trying to get the odds in my favor, not have it bounce while coming in very, very shallow. Let's see if we can get it right. Shallow, open face, heel strike. That's overhit a little bit, I think. It's spun up okay. We'll see how that one looks. I think it's probably 7, 8 feet long. You know, you wouldn't be that disappointed, but I'm looking for something just a little bit better, a little bit riskier. Okay, heel again, shallow. Give me the flight and the spin. It's spinny, but it's not high. It's actually grabbed right by the first ball, so that was a bit low on the face. You see it came out flat, but on the other camera you'll see it still had a lot of grab on it. Problem is, it came in really flat and it took a big first hop, so the spin didn't really save me. Let's go one more time. I mean, that wasn't sat great. This one looks like it's sat a little bit better. Heel down, shallow. That was hit. Could hear it grab on that first bounce. Yeah, we'd take that every single time. So you're going to see a lot from these low areas, forced carries over bunkers to elevation. You're going to see a high spinny shot from the players that have it in the locker. Now, as I mentioned in the introduction, the bunkers at Augusta are relatively unique. This is actually pretty close. This has been raked up by myself and you can see it's kind of lumpy, all right? So the ball always nestles down to some degree. You're very, very lucky if the ball actually sits on top of this. As soon as it does, it means you can get lots of height, plenty of spin, no problem, but it tends to sit down. Now that is a big problem when you're playing to greens that are above you and they're very, very quick. All right, so what do? Well, you could lower expectation levels, try and leave yourself a putt, maybe 12, 15 feet. You know, that's not really what players are used to. So the trunk and run's an option, all right? Just get it out, get it on the putting surface somewhere, take your chances with the flat stick. In order to hit the ball higher from a ball that's essentially nestled down, you need to use different parts of the club. You need to add a lot of speed, have a very particular approach to it and get it to pop up as high as you can. It needs a lot of speed, you know, which on a short shot can be very uncomfortable, so you need to take speed off the ball, getting it to pop. It's a real challenge. Let's play the trunk and run first. I'm going to go back flag, there's plenty of space. You can play it pretty much normal bunker shot, but what you won't see is the ball come out with any particular height or real stopping control. So it comes out flat, here the club went through it. It's going to roll out 12, 15 feet. You know, it's okay. You know, if you had 3 shots to get down to put the green jacket on Sunday, you'd probably do it. Otherwise, we're looking, let's just roll this into a spot. Otherwise, we're really looking at something a little bit different, a little bit special to get it up. Now, that ball is sat down this much, right? It's not plugged by any means, but the ball will behave to some degree in the same way as a plugged golf ball, as it comes out low without much spin. Now, what I'm going to suggest is that you sit the heel of the wedge down really low, get that to enter the sand relatively close to the golf ball. Okay, but it has to be sent out and down and around. You can't drag that heel in. Okay, now that's the big warning, because if you drag the heel of the club into the ball, what's going to happen? 45 degrees that way. Okay, so it has to be released down with the heel into the sand. You can't drag it, you have to throw it down to that spot. I'm going to do 2 options. You can play kind of low hands version, or you can do more of an upright version. We'll go through both, see how the ball reacts. Ultimately, what we're looking for is a little bit more height, a little bit more spin, and just do the best you can. Okay, that wasn't too bad. Let's go with the second version. This is going to be more of an upright setup. I'm going to spin the club on a much more vertical angle and really throw this down. Using a little bit of the heel, maybe a little bit more midsole, just a different option to try and pop it up. What it allows me to do is use a ton of speed, and that speed should translate into more height, more control. So you can see I'm quite a bit taller, a little bit of left angle, and really throw it down, try and pop it up. Flew a little bit too far, but came out with decent height on it. Certainly an upgrade from the trunk and run. It's very high difficulty. You're going to see players try and fringes. You're going to see them try and land it as close to the join on the edge of the green as they can in order to try and maximize the error or the margin for error they have on the green. And don't send the ball too far past the cup. That's key.